right, the D terms. These are good on any mode of transportation. The seller is responsible for quite a bit in these terms. The transportation arrangements and the related charges to the destination. We've got three terms here: DAT, DAP, and DDU. So obviously DAT is to terminal, DAP is to door, and DDP includes the duties and taxes paid by the seller. This is one that we do see a lot of maybe misuse of. I think that's a question we have coming up, but Pat, what were you going to add?
Well, I was going to add, when you're buying on a C or a D term and your price, whatever you're buying, is $1 per ingot or whatever it could be, or per piece. If there's any fluctuation in freight charges, for the better, you're not taking advantage of that. You're typically your price is probably locked in, and this is especially true, out of volatile markets, say out of Asia, China to the U.S. If you have a price locked in for 6 months with your client, you may not be getting the best. You might be paying a lot more in freight than you should be, because there could be drops of up to $500 to $1,000 in freight charges every 2 weeks coming out of that part of the world. So just keep that in mind when you're buying on a C and F term. And incorporated in there, is the freight charges.
And also, if those freight charges aren't broken out on your commercial invoice, you're paying duties on your freight.
Right. That is a good point. So let's kind of move over to the brokerage side of things for a minute with the D terms. I do have a question that somebody asked. When buying on DDP terms, who files the ISF?
The importer of record. I mean, they're the ones responsible for filing the ISF. So on DDP terms, that's going to be the seller. So it needs to be filed by, if you're importing, or you're the buyer here in the US on DDP terms, your supplier should be filing that ISF and clearing it through customs as the importer of record.
Okay. And then I've got another question on a DDP term. Can a company use Incoterms DDP into a foreign country when they have a subsidiary company, or would the subsidiary company be the importer of record, assuming that this shipment is then consigned to that subsidiary? Did you get that?
I got that one. I can answer that one for us. First off, on DDP on exports, I would not recommend you sell on that term. It definitely increases your liability. There's a lot of things in destination countries that you're likely not aware of, and it's really, I think, best left to your buyer. He's in the country where it's coming into. He should know, or have a broker that knows the rules and regulations of that country. But as far as the question goes, the subsidiary could be the importer, or as the shipper, you can actually be the importer in some countries around the world. Do take note that in some countries, DDP is actually not eligible. You're not eligible for DDP if you're selling to Brazil or Mexico, for instance. But when selling on a DDP into the EU or other countries, such as Canada, we do recommend that you address also not only the duties and taxes, but the tax, which is also a VAT or GST, with your buyer. The VAT and GSTs, can be up to 20% in many countries, and that obviously, if that comes around on your bill, it's going to make your product, not sellable overseas. And how the GST and VAT works typically is the importer overseas, they pay that to the government, and then every quarter or every 6 months, however they have it set up, they'll go ahead and reclaim that GST or VAT. Now, if you want to include that in your sold price to your shipper, you can do that, and you can, register in foreign countries, as an importer, and reclaim that GST back, just like the resident companies would. That just does take a lot of understanding of the regulations there, and obviously a little bit more work to get all that reclaimed at the end of the day.
Right. So can you guys define what a terminal is in the Incoterms when they're talking DAT to terminal, or we're talking about origin terminal charges on the chart or destination terminal charges? What is the terminal?
Well, the terminal is, pretty much the port.
Yeah.
And, every port will have a, a terminal charge to take that container off the vessel and put it on the vessel. And on, less than container load cargo, the terminal would be the warehouse you're delivering into. So that, obviously that terminal then has charges to receive the merchandise in and charges to, load and stuff the consolidated container.
And then the same goes for airport also.
Right.
The terminal would be the actual terminal at the airport. I've got another question. We use DDP for warranty replacements. Do you think that is wise?
Well, no, again, the DDP, I understand why they would want to do that in a warranty situation. We just don't recommend a DDP term because of the complexities in some foreign countries with importation.
Okay. And then we have another question. This company uses C terms mostly. However, once in a while, they'll have a request for a D term such as DDU, which they have suggested CIP or DAP to try to meet their needs. Is Incoterms 2010 the most recent that the ICC has come out with?
Yes, the 2010 is the most recent version. We're looking, to seeing the 2020 version here in a couple years. And DDU is no longer used. DAP is what has replaced DDU.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't know if we have any more D term questions, so let's go ahead and move on.